Hey, Unchainers! This is to Emert, and you're listening to the Unchaining Me podcast. Hello, Unchainers! I am back. Why did that sound like a question? I am back. Well, we are back. My husband is joining me in the studio today. We are coming together to do the first episode in quite a while. Today is March 8th, International Women's Day. So we figured, why not? Actually, why not to do an episode today? So thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
For doing this with me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I was like, it's been too long. I'm not doing this alone. So you're coming with me. And he's like, I'm honored. So I appreciate your support through thick and thin. You are the definition of relentless support in my life. So I love you and thank you.
I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Don't worry.
See you back on your elements.
You're not being interviewed. Okay. This is just us having a conversation, just driving down 95 South or North. Okay. Or just sitting down in the study with our coffees, lattes, and chit-chatting. And truly, for all of you guys out there listening, these are the things that we talk about. These are the things that we love to discuss. That bring us alive. So today's International Women's Day, March 8th. I am passionate about everything women. Of course, I'm a woman. We're raising girls. I have sisters. I have obviously a mom. And the theme for this year is embrace equity. And of course, equity and equality are not the same. And I wanted to begin from that. Like, what do we really want to talk about? We're not going to talk about, all the other very important aspects of women equality and equity. We are going to focus on the spiritual, the value we place on femininity or the feminine. And I wanted to have my husband, I wanted to have him share from his experiences how he grew up thinking about the feminine and what influenced his paradigms and how that changed over time and what he's doing with it, with what he knows now, so that it can help, anyone out there who is struggling with that. And really how I understand equity is the value of something, right? Equality could be seen as 50-50. But equity, from how I see it, and baby can, agree or disagree or add to it. The way I see it is the value we put in it. The definition of equity is the quality of being fair and impartial. It's, do we value more masculine things, or do we value the masculine more than we do the feminine? Do we value men more than we do women? Do we value the traits of women or the roles of women less, obviously, than the roles of men? And how is that being shown in society? What are the consequences to our daughters? What are the consequences to our boys and to our men? And how is it all showing up? So obviously I can't talk about that by myself, and what a better way to do it than to have a man, my man, share what he thinks about it. So before I ask you the first question, what do you think about the topic? Am I putting you in the hot seat? Are you mad at me for it?
Not mad. It's kind of dragged my behind and come sit down. And I'm going to ask you questions about femininity and what it means and all that. But I embraced it because I don't think many men talk about femininity as much as we should, especially those of us who are in relationship, marriage. there is a lot more to explore, a lot more to understand, and kind of communicate with your other half and other men out there who also are curious about what femininity is about and what what it means just generally. So it's kind of it's definitely a hot spot. It's something I've never talked with anyone outside of us before on a friendship level, whatever, because you don't really kind of have an opportunity to talk about this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's good. It's good to explore this a little bit more and communicate, talk about it openly with other fellas and see what their perspective of this is. So yeah, I'm glad I'm here.
Well, if I make you uncomfortable, I'm staying true to my character. All right. So how did you view the feminine or femininity growing up, and sorry about my voice, guys. I'm kind of fighting off a little cold, but how did you view the feminine and femininity growing up, and what do you think influenced your view and your paradigm and your opinions about it?
That definitely put me on the spot. That question is very tough. So as you know, growing up back home and, in Addis, females just generally are that the consideration and the understanding is that they have a very limited role in society, such that, most prominent places and roles and views are given to the men. And in most cases, that's still the case today. So growing up in that society, my view of women in general is limited to, a woman's role is confined to household, maybe in a community which we all grew up together with, and they don't have as much of an influence in day-to-day life and decision-making process as men. And that's definitely how I viewed women are. I'm going to dip a little bit deep about my own personal experience.
Please do.
We love as you know, didn't grow up with mom. It's mostly dad, and I've had, a stepmom stepping in to, to take the role of mom later, kind of in my preteen years. But prior to that, it is mom and aunts that I grew up with, and a couple of maids.
Stepmom. Dad, you mean?
Yeah, dad and yeah.
So mom left when you were...
when I was really young.
Okay.
And, from there on, my understanding of women's role is kind of a more of a caretaker role, not a decision maker or a prominent role in my life. So emotionally, attached myself to dad. So I grew up with that paradigm and understanding that, men are more kind of taking over, the responsibilities mostly in the house, either by working outside, bringing money home and supporting the family, or even to the point where most things that you associate with women, at least to me personally, in terms of emotional attachment and vulnerabilities and things that needs to be solved, or even on a logical level, it was done by myself and dad. So women, the way I saw it growing up was, yes, just like any other things that influence you in society, femininity for me has a very limited role, and women also is exactly that. Limited roles. A lot of it is done in the house. The most of the most important things and decisions were made by men, and as such, that was my view. And also, the society, as I said, growing up, to what extent women are limited in going and exploring their own adventures and values in life. It doesn't exist in our society and most poor countries like Ethiopia. So that's how it's been.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting that we have like a coin with two sides, but the same coin, we have the very same experience, but from different sides. Because I saw the same thing. I had the same experiences looking at my mom be at home and work and not have a lot of choices, and the values that she brings to the family not be celebrated as much as the values that my dad brought to the family, which was bringing money in and going and working versus she stays at home taking care of 7 kids. They contributed equally, but his was celebrated and hers wasn't. And I saw that I was limited and my brother was not. I was limited to being at home working with her, helping her, whereas he was allowed to go out and play. And the way they talked to us, the way, I was encouraged to look a certain way, whereas he was encouraged to express himself or go out and do things a certain way. And, looking at TV, politics, religion, I didn't see people who looked like me in prominent places. Success did not sound feminine. Religion did not sound feminine. It didn't sound empowering for a little girl. There weren't so many role models for me to look up to and say, I can be that woman. So it was very interesting to hear you talk about what you saw and try and see it from a little boy's perspective versus a little girl's perspective. So and it was so interesting how you said that the roles that women have, that nurturing, those values are beautiful. Those gifts, those traits are beautiful to have. And it's all a matter of choice, what a woman chooses to accentuate and show should be left up to her. That's what it really comes down to, and we'll talk more about it later. But just wanted to quickly put that in. And how has that really changed for you growing up? I know you left home quite young and got to travel out, eventually landing in England, and then everything else happened after that. So becoming who you are, the man you are today, how has that changed?
It definitely changed significantly because, growing up, as I said, in that kind of culture, the view that I had for women, and especially women in my life, be it relationship or friendship, it was different from how it had been in the past, and especially when you move into a Western country where there's so much advancement in understanding women's role in society, it is a cultural shock. It's definitely changed my view over the prominent role women, play. When I moved right into like the UK, the Prime Minister was right after Margaret Thatcher, which was like, she's one of the toughest women the world had ever seen, the Iron Lady. And society by then accepted equality to a level. It definitely not something that you experience on a day-to-day basis. At least you'd see that women playing an active role, like in colleges where I went to, and a little bit later growing up at workplaces. I've had, women managers that I worked for, and eventually that reflected my values in how I understood what femininity means and women's role and acceptance and just the equality that we all have, but different in equal levels. I don't know if that makes sense. And that definitely shifted my perspective. Then I started taking active interest in, what does it mean? Like being a woman, like what exactly does that mean? It reflected on my relationship, the respect I have for women, those in my life, as I said, friendship or relationship, and also at a workplace, my work colleagues and my managers, some of the most pleasant managers, great managers that I've had, because I'm a contractor, as you know, so I work for different managers all the time throughout my career. And one of the most and most effective managers that I've had were actually women. And some people may struggle with working for women, especially if you're
My
a man.
dad actually did.
Yeah,
he
you told
worked
me a story
under
about,
the minister of education was Ganna Zode.
Right.
And he came home and said to mom all the time, like, yes, like a female boss is the worst thing that can happen. He struggled with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, some of the best bosses I've had are actually women. And if you ask me how, there is this quality that my job demands, and that is attention to detail. And it's I don't know how to describe it, but I know it's on intuition level. Women have a lot more of that, and they pay attention to the things. And our job is specific to details. We cannot miss things on a regular basis, and it would be pointed out. And they're the ones that point those out and demand an immediate answer or something along those lines. Nothing on a bossy level, like, oh no, you haven't done this, whatever. Nothing like that. It is that we need this to be resolved. And when you have that communication understanding from your boss, I think it helps a lot in the job that we do. And one of the things that really I want to highlight is that as you work, you also have personal life. And sometimes personal life most definitely spill over to your work life. And whenever you kind of drop your performance level or communication level, or when something is off, I have noticed that women managers are more acute to understanding that and reaching out and say, hey, what's going on? And if you are open and explain, oh, this is happening at home or whatever, or I can't, or I'm not feeling well, whatever it might be, they're the first ones to say, oh, we understand, take your time. And that helps a lot. That intuition helps a lot to build that manager to, worker kind of a relationship. So, yeah, I mean, growing up, especially moving into a Western country where, the paradigm and the understanding of women's role in society is completely different, is always helpful.
I wasn't going to mention that word, but you mentioned it, so it's your fault.
Which is?
Bossy.
Okay.
Your fault. And then I'll add another word, because I think it goes hand in hand with that word bossy. Anger.
Oh.
Why do you think men struggle, or do you, with the word bossy and anger when it comes to women? Or do you struggle to understand women power and women anger, and why? Woo, hot seat. You want some water? Ice water?
I have water right here. That is a very tough question. Let me just think for a little bit. So your question is, why do men struggle with women who are bossy, and also women who are angry?
I don't want to personalize it like that, because anger can be expressed many different ways, right? There are healthy ways of expressing anger. There are unhealthy ways of expressing anger. I know a lot of men say, oh, feminists are a bunch of angry women. And I also, I understand that creates a lot of fear in men, because the ego really hates and is really afraid of the unknown, especially when it's mirrored.
Right.
The wrongdoer, when it sees the potential wrongdoer being mirrored, it wants to obviously protect itself. And I really don't believe in two wrongs making any rights. So I don't believe in retaliation in any way.
Right.
If the victim goes the same way as the perpetrator, it's just more bloodshed in short, right? So I don't believe in that. But I also believe in stagnant anger consuming the host and doing nobody else any favor. Right. So anger has to be expressed. we are all human beings. Wrongs have been done. Equality wasn't there. Equity, it's still not there.
Right.
So there is anger. Women do feel anger. And men struggle with the expression of it. Some men struggle with any anger coming from a woman. Being an Ethiopian woman, I was never allowed to express any kind of anger. And I've had to work with therapists over the years to allow myself my different archetypes to be able to come out. And one of them is the angry me.
Right.
And the same thing with that bossy thing. Like, I don't allow anyone to call our daughters bossy.
Right.
Because there is that part of them that wants to lead, that wants to take charge. And yes, those are masculine traits, regarded as masculine traits. And a lot of people have problems with women showing masculine traits.
Right.
And we do have those traits, just like you have intuition, which is generally a feminine trait.
Right.
So my question is, why do some men struggle, and how do they overcome it?
So a man has feminine traits, just like a woman would have masculine traits. It's just expressed in different levels because we are determined by our DNA, hormone XX versus XY.
Nurture.
So nurture, how we were brought up in society, has an effect on how we express ourselves when it comes to emotions. Naturally, women are very much in tune to their emotions than men, and also very good at expressing it. And those expressions usually come out, at least what we associate women to express their emotions is in form of sadness, which usually is expressed by crying, anxiety, fear, and a lot of negative emotions. Anger isn't one of them. If it's anger, it is suppressed towards self. It's internalized. It's not expressed because we tend to associate, and this is society, that includes men and women, associate women's expression or women's emotional expression to be on the good side. Like the love and the care, the intuition, the connection, the understanding, the empathy, all those feminine characters is how you associate a good woman versus a bad woman, quote unquote bad woman. And when women express their own internal emotions like anger towards something that clearly would make you angry, then we automatically assume that woman to be bossy an outlaw or outcast from society, who wasn't brought up very well understanding her role in society, that kind of stuff. This has gone on for a very, very long time. And since we are the product of, our societies, we tend to exhibit that wherever we go. People we interact with, friends, workplaces. So every time we see parenting as well, it's very unusual for a mom that's raising 3, 4, 5 kids to be angry at quote unquote a dad that goes out and works and brings money back home because, he is the breadwinner. He has to have certain prominent role in that family. So, and also kids growing up will most definitely see that and see, oh no, moms or women generally not expected to be mad or angry or show emotions. So that has to change. I think that is changing a lot. And there's still a long way to go. We have to accept, like both men and women, that just like how men express their emotions, whatever it is, be it anger or frustration or whatever, has to be the same for women.
How did you change it? I want you to share that with our listeners because I've seen you change that.
Right.
And I know a lot of people struggle with it. And my clients, most of my clients are women, and I wish they could drag their husbands to coaching too. But, a husband, a man sitting down and getting coaching from a woman, probably younger than him, that his wife is talking to, he probably thinks it's some kind of gossipy thing going on. There's so much respect that isn't there, and value that's not given to investing in themselves on that level too. And then there's that gender thing. so I want them to hear from a man who's worked on himself, you, the benefits of that. Because I remember when we were dating, you know, we've gone through therapy, we've been open about it, through our relationship struggles. And when we were dating, I remember telling you, I want us to have a spiritual relationship and spiritual equity, spiritual equality. That's what I'm after. I remember telling you that. And it took a few years for that to really sink, even for me.
Right.
I didn't know exactly what I was asking for. I just felt it. I knew how it was going to feel. And it took us a while to get there. You know, even this past year, we've been working on it. I want people to hear that it's possible and to know how to sense it and to know what to do to get there. So can you please share how you allowed yourself to experience traits that you in the old self considered feminine,
Right.
and to also accept things in me that you in the old self considered masculine?
So I think first it comes down to how you value your relationship with the woman you love. If, as you said, you want a more deeper connection with your spouse, partner, whatever, then it is inevitable that you gotta try and understand the part of her that would make you better partner for you know the relationship you're trying to build
For the whole. With a W.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those, as I say, you know, your feminine qualities are there. If you develop respect towards your own feminine qualities, there is no reason why you wouldn't embrace it. And I understand there is the other side of this argument where we definitely are influenced by society. We have friends, we have relatives that we sit down and talk with. And how many of my guy friends would understand what I'm talking about? Would that be considered as being weak or being a woman-like? You know, there's a lot of men out there that struggle with this concept, femininity. And that's because there is a fear in themselves and people that are around them to be considered, as I said, you know, weak. Once you break that mold and once you're out from that circle and you give yourself the freedom to embrace the part of you that you have been hiding, which is your feminine qualities, because 50% of you are from your mom. You can't deny that.
There you go, yeah.
You carry those traits and qualities. Then you would start understanding the woman you married to or the woman you with, right? Because you then start connecting first on emotional level. That means understanding emotions they go through, listening to the things they go. Sometimes, you know, these things are second nature. When you see your partner upset, she doesn't have to tell you, you get it. And one of the psych evaluations that I did was I am considered extremely emotionally intelligent. And we read that together.
Convenient. Very convenient.
So one of the qualities that I have is to be able to read people and emotions and relate to that person in those ways. And maybe everybody, maybe people like men like myself need to do that and do that evaluation and see what that says about you. You don't have to share with the world. Yeah, those are your strengths. And are you emotionally intelligent? And if you are, how can you enhance that to enhance your own relationship? Not just your relationship with your partner, but with your friends, you know, colleagues, whatever you are. Because we're social animals. We want to interact with people that are around us.
Excuse me.
So we are social animals. We like to interact with people. We want to make friends, and that can only help you. So break that mold and understand the part of you that you've been suppressing for a long time. It doesn't make you less of a man. You will still have your masculinity traits, courage, protection, accurate leadership. All of those are still
Logic.
there. Yeah, you're just enhancing to the part of you that you've been suppressing because society has told you to do just that. So that's how I, got in touch with myself, read books, and the fact that we have 3 beautiful girls that we're raising. At some point, the 2 boys will leave, so that leaves me with me and
Surrounded.
4 of you, with the potential of having a male dog. I have to.
Breaking news. It's probably going to be a female dog.
Then I'll leave. So it's and I think especially for our little ones, girls, we want them to have certain values, a lot of respect for who they are, because we know that society might not be kind to who they are, at least in the short term. We want them to have that empowerment from the young age so they can understand their roles equally as boys growing up. And that's how important it is.
I appreciate that. I think that's gold for someone who knows, what to do with it. I think a big point there is also how to be secure in our own, in his own masculinity. Where's that coming from? There's that koftanna thing that a lot of men were really stuffed with growing up. Like, if you don't cry, you're a man. If you raise your voice and if you're abusive tendencies, then you're a man. There's really all of these negative things that a lot of our men were surrounded by growing up, and these things are in the subconscious,
right?
And the power of our subconscious, the biggest part of that iceberg beneath the surface, is that for as long as you don't bring it to the conscious and change it and put it in the open, it rules your life. You may be swearing to me and saying, I don't believe that. Just like a racist person would say, I have a lot of black friends. No, I'm not interested in what you're formulating to me as you're talking to me. I'm formulating in what's stashed in your subconscious.
Right.
And if in your subconscious, your dad has been screaming at your mom and beating her or calling her names, or your sisters have been being beaten by your dad, however normal you made it look, or you were taught, oh, that was such a Habesha thing to do, every Habesha family went through that. If that was your role model, you got your macho masculinity from that kind of a man figure, your manhood is not secure,
right?
Especially if you're living in a Western culture. Especially if you're living in a place where women are so empowered and they can make choices. They can be mothers. They can be nurturers. And they can lead. And they can sit down and decide with you. They can empower you when you need empowerment. And they can nurture you at the same time, And you can also lead and cry. Because you're human first.
Right.
You were born first. Before your sexual hormones and your gonads starts descending down, you were a human being first. And then you become that sexual being later in life. There's a sequence to what you become. There's a reason you weren't that before you became a human. So that security is very important. Same thing with women. That security in your femininity is so important first before you become the high achieving, high performing, logical, powerful woman.
Just sorry to cut short. Don't you think society in general, I keep saying society, don't you think there is like less incentive for a lot of men to embrace that part of themselves? Because what I see...
What do you mean incentive? Who's giving the incentive? The incentive has to come from within.
From within, but for what purpose, right? So society right now, especially in a male dominated culture, whether it's back home or in a Western society, there's definitely an interest in keeping the status quo. White male, especially those between the age of 30 to 50, they have a prominent role in keeping the status quo. Religion plays a part, a huge part. So somehow men in this kind of society have to fit in how they see their role within that society. So there's less incentive, if you know what I mean.
If we go big, we go society, if we go labels and divisions like white men and things like that, there's very little incentive. But I like to go granular, as you know me. I like to go family. I like to go relationship.
And also on the family level, like a lot of women in relationship, they, let me just put this word, not in a derogatory way, but no, I'm just saying this. They put up with what...
Yeah, they settle.
They settle for what the relationship is like, what they get from the man. There's so many reasons that we can go into it, financial reasons, economics, whatever. Yeah. But they settle. So there's no incentive for the man in their life to change because it is serving him, because
big but here what I think the incentive is, it's peace. I think the incentive is internal. From the number of people that contact me, that a small time coach in our community, really, that contact me saying, I am suffering in this relationship. I hate it. And my husband hates it too. Obviously it takes two to tango, and to tango, people hate the relationships they're in. Parenting is becoming hell, especially for the diaspora community, because the kids are in a different atmosphere, in a different trajectory than their parents. And identity is becoming a slippery slope. People are speaking different languages. There's some kind of awakening going on, especially for women. They're realizing there's something more. I can be more. I'm not satisfied, as a mom. And there's some waking up to do, because the nurturing, the being a mom is so valuable. It's not given the value it deserves by the very person who made them a mom, by the husband himself, right? So even you are the head of the family title that he's been given is not giving him the peace he wants and craves for. So if he settles for the, unhealthy, unhappy, power struggle, relationship full of nagging and, silent treatments, then I guess it's working for him. But I'm realizing now, with the number of calls that I'm inundated with, it's different. If you ask me how many are really ready to work on it and invest in it, it's a different question. But the people saying, I hate it and this isn't right, are more than ever. So I think the incentive is a peaceful life, a great, fruitful relationship. I, for myself, will tell you, I will settle for nothing else, and that's why I'm here with you, because I didn't want to settle for anything else but a prospering, beautiful relationship where I'm equally partnering with someone that I will allow to lead, but will also know that will allow me to lead when it's something I'm stronger at. Right. When it's your vision that I trust, I follow, and I know you'll listen to me when you're not sure, So I think people are looking for that. People are realizing that they don't always know. They don't always want to lead, that they want that partnership with another human being, and everything else follows. That's what I think the incentive is.
Absolutely. Definitely, I understand. I think what you said was absolutely right. If it's working for the partner, I mean, I'm talking about the male in relationships, then it's working as far as, partnership or marriage relationship is concerned. The status quo.
Yeah.
The status quo. But move past that, because there's something that is okay, and there's something better, and it is great.
Yeah.
And if you move all of that past, then how do you bring your partner over to the great side of the relationship? And every marriage, every relationship, of course, it needs work, no doubt. It's a process. It's not a destination. But once you get to a better level, and when you look back how far you've come in creating that emotional and spiritual bond with your partner, I think what you said is absolutely right. The peace, the internal serenity that you get is tremendous, right? And that can only help you to grow as a person. Forget the relationship, just as a person. It makes you a better human being. You'll understand other people more. You will empathize with people more. You understand yourself better. Never mind about other people. And your goals becomes clearer, and you'll have just a better life, an outlook in life than how you were before.
You'll be a more secure person in this insecure world, uncertain world. You'll be a more secure person. You won't be scared with each, movement.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being so scared of the unknown and feeling like you have enemies? Like when you're insecure, that's how it feels. Every activism feels like it's aimed at you.
Right.
Whereas when you're secure with your true identities, when you invest in understanding, time and energy and understanding, what are the lies that I've been told? Just because I've been told it over and over and over again for many years does not make it true.
Right.
How can I be curious? How can I ask questions? And more importantly, if I have kids, am I just leading them down the same rabbit hole that I've been led down to?
Right.
How do I create that curious mindset in them? Which brings me to my last question. What can we do? What can dads do specifically? And I can talk to the mother's part, to teach their boys about healthy masculinity, to teach their boys about women, healthy ways, empowering ways, equitable ways to deal with women in dating and work situations. We have 2 16-year-old boys who could even be dating right now and not telling us.
For all we know.
For all we know, I know they're pretty open. I think they'll mention it somehow.
They will.
And I would read it. I would read them.
You'd go to the phone and give me your password.
Not literally read it, but like read them like a book. I would like to think so.
Yeah.
But who knows how they play us? But how do parents do that?
That's a great question. I think the first thing you do is by living it. Be an example.
What was that thing we read last night? The best sermon is a good example.
Is a good example.
Yeah.
It's something like a life well lived is the best revenge, right?
Yes.
Not in that negative sense, but you know what I mean. So
live
it.
Catch your drift.
Yeah,
Yes.
Live it. We're lucky enough to have both boys and girls under our roof, and it gives me as a dad the opportunity to treat women in my life, daughters and my wife, in a way that I want them to pick up and see what it means to be a feminine person, a feminine dad, and a partner. Hopefully when they grow up, they will see that value and apply the same standard to their women in their life, because they will have many. They're still 16, and they're obviously not ready to settle in. They're gonna have a lot of relationships, whatever. Women will be in and out of their lives, but the one value that I want them to grow up with is to understand the equality of women in their lives, try and embrace a part of themselves that I don't want them to suppress when it comes to female values, when it comes to emotionally in touch with themselves, when it comes to understanding emotions from other people, and really treat their women, even now, like, mom, stepmom, and their sisters, completely different. than how I was brought up with to treat women differently. That's the first thing. And the second thing is they're going to have many questions. They'll ask, they are open. We have open kind of platform. We do talk about these things. And they ask questions as much as they can and try and be open and answer those questions. And whenever in their own relationship, understanding and how they perceive their role is, it's for them to see how I'm leading my life and my family in this, in this union that we have, right? And that gives them a good kind of understanding of what it is. And then more importantly, for example, our two little ones, 4 and 2, they go through a range of emotions within an hour, from happy, cheery, laughing mode to crying and everything else. When you are absolutely stressed, the natural place for you and I to go to is be mad or angry. What the hell is happening? Whatever, we sometimes lose it as human emotions. But one thing we try to develop is to treat them like grown-up adults, and they have emotions, and we sit them down and give them a space to express their anger and emotions. So when they come out of it, they don't come out of it, disliking themselves or disliking for disappointing mom and dad, and embracing a part of themselves that is very expressive, because it's our expressive emotions, right? We try and do that as much as possible. Hopefully when the teenagers see this is how emotions are expressed, and it's okay for us to have that too. And that becomes a lesson going forward. So, and like for parents who don't have girls in their lives, just only boys, it's just how you interact with your wife and partners, how you interact with them and how you treat them. Kids are extremely intelligent. They pick things up very, very easily, said and unsaid. Energy, there's this thing that I usually talk about, energy is in the house. Energy determines how kids, whether they thrive or whether they suffer and that energy, how you have that partnership and understanding with your other half is extremely important, which they do pick up from. So working on yourself has all those beautiful incentives.
Beautiful. And all of the above. Our kids have the front row seat to, sometimes I feel like they're tired of it, but then that's the beautiful thing. They have front row seats to us living, falling flat on our asses, getting back up, being honest about it, trying, working on ourselves. They see us meet our therapists, work on ourselves, get better, lose our tempers, apologize, work on ourselves. You know what I mean? I love that.
Right.
I love that, because we're not selling this pill of perfection. We're not selling falling and staying there. We're selling real life and humility and just honesty. And I love that. And part of that is also making them aware of how the world is. That it's not, we teach them how we want them to be, but we also reflect to them how the world out there is. Like teaching them how we want them to be is like, it can be as simple, innocuous things like, Nati or Yomi, the boys, tickling the little girls, and they say, no, stop. And they continue, and I step in and I say, the first stop is enough. We want them to know that their voice matters.
Right.
And that the boys are acutely sensitive to that woman's voice, to a girl's voice, because that would be a girl's voice next year, and they will be acute to that voice. But we let them know that out there, that's not the same. Women are not heard as quickly and taken as seriously. Right. And it's important that they know that there's a pay gap out there, that for the same work and the same experience, the woman gets less, that they know that. They know about sexism and they're aware. It's very important that they see us expressing our emotions. They see you expressing your emotions. That, they see you when you're struggling, they see you struggle. And it's okay. Emotions are emotions and they're supposed to be expressed. The truth are about our backgrounds, our triumphs, and the things that we have overcome. It's just beautiful that they get to see us. And I don't have anything else to add other than be good examples.
Right.
And talk to them. Be honest. Don't sell them bullshit. Don't tell them fake things. They can smell it.
They can see it. Yeah.
They can say it. They can smell it. And they hate that you lie to them because they've spent most of their childhoods thinking you're perfect, that you're superwoman and mommy and daddy. And now they know you're mom and dad.
Right.
You're just like anyone else.
Yeah.
And they want you to come clean.
Yeah.
They want to know that you're not perfect. And they want to hear it from your own mouth. So just do that.
Yeah.
And tell them I'm trying to learn. And even sometimes tell them, teach me. How's the world right now? Teach me. How's your world?
Right.
And for most of us, we're first generation immigrants. They're second generation. They're better versed in this world than we are. Allow them to teach you that.
Yeah.
And especially in these gender equity matters, they're better than us than we are. So that's why.
One last thing I want to mention here, and this is from experience, is how your relationship with Nati has developed. And, from an emotional vacuum to how close you have become with him. And that's because you leveled up with him on a lot of things. Honesty, openness, not just sharing your triumphs, but sharing your struggles in an open way, which he never had the opportunity to explore with you. And that is helping him to appreciate who mom is, both good, bad.
Make me cry.
And didn't mean to, but I'm sorry.
Okay.
Good, bad, and everything else in between. But also him giving him the perspective that people, both kids and adults, do struggle. We all have our own failures. And we are giving them the respect. You are giving him the respect that he deserves, which is, I'm your mom, and you have the right to know these things. You're valuing him. And that value is reciprocated over to you in a way that he shares things that he never used to before.
Yeah.
So, and that's teaching him that mom has a very big prominent role in my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then that can only help him become an amazing, wholesome man growing up.
He's already becoming that. I see that in his 16-year-old paradigm. I see that his perspective has shifted. I share my perspective shifts with him. Like when we moved to Stafford, and he still goes to school in Alexandria. That's a good 50-minute drive, 4 times a day minimum.
Right.
Sometimes he has basketball games, as you know, and I drive that 6 times a day.
Right.
And I was scared. We were both scared if we were able to maintain that.
Yeah.
And our perspective shifted. And I told him, what mom gets this much amount of time in a car with her teenage son? Because your reflex right now at this age is to run away.
All things parents.
All things parents. And here you are stuck with me in traffic jam. So, joke's on you. So he saw me making that perspective shift. And when we told him about summer travel plans last year, and he was saying, hey, Mom, it's okay. I'm going to miss you guys. But, I get to have one set schedule for the whole summer. Right. It's a good thing for me to experience one routine in my dad's house. And I'm like, Nati, this is amazing. So, we kind of went on a tangent. But, yes, he is... his girlfriends and his wife especially better pay me, okay? they better at least thank me. Okay.
They most definitely will. You just have to pray that he brings the right ones home.
Well, we both know there's no right one.
I'm just saying.
There's only the right one for the
him.
time.
Oh, for the time. Yeah.
For him, for the time. For what he can take and understand and cherish and learn from for the time. We both have learned that at least that much.
Absolutely.
I love you so much.
You too.
Thank you for this. I'm sure the listeners are going to love it.
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. Thanks for sharing.
Any questions, ask her, not me.
I'll forward them to you since you're the emotionally intelligent one in the family. That was rigged, by the way. That I need to know what you answered.
You have to say that.
Yep. Anyway, Unchainers, thank you for
200 plus questions.
Right.
3 hours later. Ooh,
Rigged.
you're that kind of person.
Rigged. Thank you for listening, sticking it out with us. I hope you enjoyed that. Happy International Women's Day again. Go continue unchaining. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.